Okay, we continue the last week. Number four.
Hello and welcome to our week on customer understanding and analysis. This week we're coming to you from the TERP Startup Lab at the University of Maryland, and it's in this space that we work with entrepreneurs to do prototyping and development of their innovative new concepts. We're working with them to understand customers, and that's really the first step to doing research and prototyping. In understanding customers, we're going to talk about a number of things this week to include how to identify and satisfy real market needs. We're also going to be talking about macroeconomic changes, what's going on in political, environmental, regulatory, societal, and technical landscapes as well. And with that, we look forward to working with you this week and discussing customer understanding and analysis.
Opportunity analysis canvas. Okay.
As we explore macro changes, we are turning the corner on the opportunity analysis canvas to look at macroeconomic change, to look at demographics and psychographics, as well as a variety of other factors that happen broadly in the economy and society. So our objectives here are to introduce this concept of macroeconomics and to think a little bit about the relationship of that with opportunity, immersion, and engagement. We also want to think about this as an opportunity to change or to fill gaps that are appearing in the market. So what are these changes? Well, there are changes in technology. There are changes in demographics. There are changes in psychographics. And there are also changes in political and regulatory factors and rules. So these are the types of economic factors and societal factors that we're going to examine that tend to be great opportunities for entrepreneurs and or present gaps among your competitors. So when we look at technology change, this is one of the most important triggers of change. We see that new technologies create immense opportunities for entrepreneurs. Portable cassette players translate into portable CD players, translate into portable MP3 players, translate into cell phones and have these capabilities. So you'll see that when technology changes, there were companies and industries and markets and complementary markets that were built around each of these technical changes. We want to think too about how significant technical change can impact and create entirely new markets. For us, what that means is that when you have large technology changes, the availability of a PC, the internet, mobile communications, it's a whole new ground for entrepreneurs to participate in and to launch new products and services into. And the bigger the change, the bigger the opportunity. And we also see technologies trickle down into the other applications. Lasers that were used for medical devices, now used in checkouts, and now used in your desktop printer. So we see technologies, again, introduce a variety of opportunities for entrepreneurs. Commercialization is certainly key to that, and we want to recognize that as well. We want to think about the commercial viability of change. And not all technologies are going to have that, but we want to be thoughtful of how they're interconnected. And we want to think about the interplay of the technological change with industry dynamics and what we can do to compete against these firms, particularly as the cost of participating decreases. The second element we want to think about as we discuss macroeconomic factors is demographics, the demographic changes that are going on in the space, the observable changes. A few examples of that here in the U.S. include aging population. We are, on the average, getting older, increasing ethnic diversity in the U.S., an unhealthier society. We are, versus the rest of the world, a bit heavier, a bit unhealthier in a variety of measures. What does that mean for entrepreneurs? Well, each presents opportunity. Each trend offers new opportunities for entrepreneurs. When we think about the aging population in the U.S., we see an emergence of assisted living centers that are something different than I'm living alone or independently, or I go into a nursing home that has high costs and perhaps more attention than I need from healthcare providers. Maybe there's a middle ground where I need some help or different degrees of help or help with some things but not all things, and you see a large volume of these entrepreneurs get engaged in assisted living centers. Spanish language radio, television, and other ethnic-focused radio and television and media is something that's emerging at a rapid pace in the U.S. as well to serve new markets with new interests and needs. We also, in recent years, have seen a rapid surge of organic food stores, where the organic food products have gone beyond of just being available in certain parts of the U.S. It used to be Los Angeles and New York and Colorado. In time, it's gone into virtually everywhere. It's gone not only into the corners of your local grocer, but it's been the entire grocery store, the Whole Foods, the Moms, the Yes, the natural grocers in the U.S., and others elsewhere as well. And it's become to the point where in your existing grocers, all of the organic product is no longer bought back in the corner in the back of the store by itself. It's being pulled forward, and it's being put alongside its non-organic elements too. So what we see is that there's a variety of opportunity that's out there, and we're even seeing a lot of students on campus develop food-based ventures. In that context, again, they're looking for a product that is made locally, that is more natural, that is more organic, and in that context, it's a unique advantage against the large grocers and the large companies that are out there. So demographic trends, perceptions present immense opportunities for entrepreneurs. Psychographics is related to that. Psychographics is more geared towards how people feel, how people think, what influences their buyer preferences. And what can we do as entrepreneurs to think about brands and markets that are evolving and are interested in behaving differently. So this is a little bit at the intersection of some of the interest in healthy eating, but it also might be at the intersection of people that prefer to support local farmers, that prefer to buy their food from a local grocer. And in that context, again, changing dynamics are presenting new opportunities for entrepreneurs in this element of psychographics. The fourth level that we're going to evaluate and discuss briefly is political and regulatory changes. What we mean here is there are elements of deregulation that may open entrepreneurs opportunities. There are also different elements where there are changes that are emerging and preferences that are emerging and shifts that are emerging or laws that are changing that make it easier for entrepreneurs to compete. So in summary, we want to think about the direct relationships that may exist between macroeconomic factors and new venture opportunities. We want to think about where are changes or gaps. Are there things going on in your community where the demographics are changing and that's changing the needs and wants of the market? And can you do something about that to deliver a new product or service? We want to think about technical changes. Are there new technologies emerging or new tools that are emerging that you can have access to and let that play a role in your new venture creation? We want to think about the psychographic changes. What's going on in the space of how people think or feel? And is there a need that's there? Is there a gap that you can fill? And then lastly, from the political and regulatory environment, are there rules that are changing? Are there laws that are changing? Are there new opportunities that's birthed for entrepreneurs from there as well?
Yes, it's true. The style, commerce,
it's essential that government and entrepreneurs work together. If you think about it, government sets the rules by which entrepreneurs either thrive or don't thrive. So, for example, there are countries like the United States that is a culture that supports taking risk. How does it support taking risk? In our laws. Our laws allow you, it's pretty easy to start a business. It's easy to fail. You can go into bankruptcy, but you don't go to jail. There are many countries in the world that's not the case. And so it's really important that we collaborate in terms of laws. But then it's also, governments can work with the private sector to create protections that help businesses create value. Think of the Patent and Trademark Office. Without a patent or a trademark, an ability as a business person to protect what you've created, your unique ideas, what do you really have of value? Because someone can just copy you. And so that's another place where business and government need to work together. Third, I would say, is in business people working together with government, entrepreneurs working together with government to help spread entrepreneurship. If you think about the President's Ambassadors for Global Entrepreneurship, which is an initiative started by President Obama, we at the Department of Commerce, the Department of State, the White House, work with some of the world's best known entrepreneurs to inspire, to mentor, but also to teach other governments how do you create an environment where entrepreneurship can flourish. So there's so many ways where business, entrepreneurs, and the government and the public sector need to work together.
Why is culture very important for autonomy and government?
A passion of mine, and one of the reasons I'm so excited to be able to do this guest lecture, is in the area of workforce development and skills development. For the very first time, for example, the Department of Commerce has made skills development and our workforce training a priority for the Department of Commerce. Why is that? We live in a fast-changing world. We need to make sure that we're training our workers for the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow. And that's a place where government and the private sector have to work together, because businesses need to be open and lead and give ideas about what is the workforce that they need, so that universities, community colleges, and all the training providers can develop programs to support the needs of our economy.
As aspiring entrepreneurs, some of us may have ideas. We may have concepts, we may have thought of it on the drive to work, we may have thought of it in the shower, but I think one of the key elements that's going to translate the potential of your idea to be a real company is, does it fill a real need? Is there a real customer? And so that's going to be the focus of what we'll talk about today. When we think about this, to build a successful company, we need something, a product or a service, that satisfies the customer's need or want at a price that makes sense. And we'll talk about that interplay of needs and wants as well as price. So key questions for identifying a real need. Is there an unsolved problem? And do you have any evidence or research to support that? Is there a significantly better way of solving that problem that you can bring to market? And can you do it at a sustainably better price? So being cheaper temporarily is not necessarily a great solution, because your competitors may simply lower prices as well. But is the way that you're doing it fundamentally different, that you can deliver a sustainably lower price because your expenses are going to be sustainably lower than competitors? So we want to study what's out there. We want to see the needs and wants. One way to do that is to really think about what can we do to get opinions and views from a lot of people. And how can we do that effectively to see a problem? And we want to recognize, what are the sources of that pain or aggravation? Are there customer complaints? Are there other clues of an unfulfilled need that we can succeed with as an entrepreneur? A great way of doing that are the product review sites. Now, we might find that when we go to sites like this, if we have an idea for some type of a new speaker system, we don't want to compete directly with Apple and make iPhones, but we want to compete in that iPhone accessory market. And we think that we may have a better way than the other speaker technologies that are out there. And so one way to recognize what is the relative satisfaction level of the market is to go in and read reviews and see what's going on. And so we can search for the iPhone 5 speaker docks and see what's out there. And we can detail that, and we can go through and we can see, in this case, over 1,000 customer reviews. That would be nearly impossible to get this level of detail by doing any level of surveys. And if we did do surveys, it would take a lot of time, and it would be expensive. What we can do here quite quickly is go online for free and draw what conclusions we can from a variety of customer reviews. We also want to recognize that identifying the need is only the start. That after we've identified it, we really have to think about what can we do about it and consider the future of those and the future of those needs. We want to gather information about preferences and customer preferences. And we want to evaluate those preferences and think about, what are they telling us via interviews, via focus groups, where we might bring a small group of people together to have a conversation, or via surveys. And think about not only what are they saying now, but what does that mean in the future? How do we build a solution that's going to last? And we also want to recognize that customers may not entirely understand what they want and what the solution is. So we have to exercise some of our own ability and some of our own insight to forecast what's out there, or recognize what are the values or the core needs and wants that we need to forecast and think about in the future. There are tremendous resources in the space in the internet age. This is a small snapshot of the types of resources that you have access to that are a combination of government resources, private sector resources, in large part free resources, where you can learn about companies and products and markets and customers. And it's a rather endless list. Here this is categorized by looking at the federal in the US, as well as statistics from Europe and abroad, of looking at various public library resources as well, and large data sets. So you have tremendous access to understand industries and markets today. So we need to focus, we need to research, and we need to use a bit of intuition. We don't need to meet every customer need that's imaginable. A customer might have 10 needs, but they're only really willing to pay for 5. And we might only really have a good idea of how to serve 4 of those. Or to get to that 5th one, it may take a year. But if we wait that long, a competitor may beat us to it. So that's where, again, you don't need to meet every need imaginable. You may never be able to get there. And if you do get there, you may be too late. Or if you do get there early and you try and do everything, it may be more expensive than customers are willing to bear. So for that, we want to focus on products and services that we can create and launch successfully in the relatively near term. That we can create a minimally viable product, launch it, get feedback, iterate, and do it again. And that we recognize our first product or service is not our last product and service. Most of what we buy today is the second version, the fourth version, the fifth version. So in that context too, we don't want to be too preoccupied with trying to build a perfect solution. So we want to fulfill the preferences that matter, and we want to think about what can we add and what can we enhance, and what is important versus other features or functions that are important. We also want to think about segmentation, and what is it that different customers want. We're probably not going to have a one-size-fits-all solution. So in this context, when we think about opportunity, and when we think about how to satisfy real needs, we want to research creatively. We want to learn from the research that others have done. We want to use our intuition, and we want to think about segmentation. We want to think about where is there a niche, where is there a profile or a category of customer that we can serve and serve successfully. So as we examine real market needs, there's some critical questions that are aligned with satisfying those needs. We want to think about why would a customer need my product or service? What's the best way to assess their needs? What features are important? Why does my solution fit better than the current and future offerings? And what should I charge? So the economic feasibility of your product is one of the first things that I try to work with students to explore. It doesn't take long to get to the conversation of how do you make money? How do you generate income? What is the ballpark of revenues and expenses, at least by category, that you're considering? So over-designing your product can be a large pitfall to doing that. You might end up with a product that no one is willing to buy because of the price. We also want to think about keeping production costs manageable and volume appropriately high to have that good economic flexibility and balance. We also want to think about the concern of if something is very expensive and there are not many people that want it, is it going to be unprofitable? So again, a critical question to answer. We want to understand that before we build it. So when you think of vehicles and segmentation, this was the original Tesla vehicle, the Tesla Roadster, a $109,000 vehicle when it came to market in 2009, and not for everyone. Not a lot of people can afford $109,000. Not a lot of people want a two-seat vehicle. Not a lot of people want an all-electric vehicle. So they're not trying to serve everyone, but they've carved out a niche, and they carved out a competitor in the context of Ferrari and Porsche and the other high-end sports car markets that they've elected to pursue in the beginning. So this is where they started. At the same time they were doing this, there were other solutions in the electric vehicle market. So the Chevy Volt came to market soon thereafter. Different category, different price point, different technology, different market, still had the electric and the hybrid electric elements to it, but a different solution for a different customer with different needs and wants. A third element are the very small vehicles that are only legal on highways with a speed rating of 35 miles per hour or less. Different market, different purpose. Still all electric, but perhaps more oriented towards resort communities, or the golf course communities, or campuses, or golf courses, or theme parks. So a variety of other markets, different needs, different wants, similar technology in a broad category of electric vehicles, similar purpose of getting me from A to B, but a different approach, a different need that they're fulfilling. And all three of these companies may be successful doing what they do, but they picked a segment, and they picked a purpose, and they've drilled in and focused on the needs and wants of a certain type of customer. So that's what we want to do as entrepreneurs. The second iteration of the Tesla was the sedan. Bigger market, lower price point, competing here against Mercedes, BMW, etc. Your first product is not your last product. Why didn't they come out with this first? Well, a high price point vehicle is probably going to be more profitable. It also sets an element of brand, and it sets the element of being a performance car company, and that's perhaps easier to do with a sports car than it would have been for a sedan. So great marketing, but also great technology, and focusing on a different segment and a different market. So we want you to be honest with yourself about competing products, and also be data-driven. Don't just assume that a competing product is poor for one reason or another. Look for research. Look for survey feedback. Try and get some quantitative understanding of what the gaps are and what gaps you can fill. We also want you to recognize that you're not overly optimistic. We want you to be optimistic, but we want that to be moderated by some level of data and some level of insight and expertise. And we want you to do a fair evaluation of what's out there. What are the strengths and weaknesses of competitors, and what are the strengths and weaknesses of the solution that you have in mind? We want you to use your relationships and think about your social networks. Think about your friends and your family and customers and competitors and others that you might have some affiliation with that can give you some real insight. We want you to understand the marketing and selling process. To be successful, you need to recognize that the best marketed products often win. It's not simply the best products. And we want to think about the aspect of personal selling and pricing and the role that that plays in new venturing. So as an entrepreneur, you may not only be the inventor and the innovator, you might be the head salesperson as well. And that success depends on pricing in many times. And recognizing all the associated costs, it's not only a manufacturing cost. It's cost of design and marketing and other elements that you've got to factor into your pricing. You've got to understand the difference between fixed and variable costs. And we'll talk about a little bit later in the capstone course that we do. We also want to think about financials and competitors' financials. And we'll talk about that a bit later too in our new venture financing course. We want to be aware of underpricing our product. We want to estimate volume and think about volume and match that to what we think the market is going to bear and be sure that we're being mindful of the price of competing products, and that if it's going to take us a little bit of time to get to market, the price of competing products may change as well. And in this context, we don't want to underprice to the point that people are aware of our quality. If we're offering comparable features or even better features than competitors, it's okay to price near them or just below them or maybe just above them if you have a superior feature set. But don't feel that just because you're new, you need to be dramatically cheaper. It might induce some level of thinking that you're worse in the mind of customers. So in summary, why would customers need your product? What's the best way to assess those needs? What features do they care about? And talking to them early, very early in the process, gives insights on that. We want to think about how your product fits and why is it better. And do you have some data out there that identifies the gaps of competitors, and that's not only your personal opinion. And pricing. Beware of underpricing. Also beware of missing what some of your expenses are going to be. You don't think beyond just the manufacturing cost of your product. What's it going to cost to market it? What's it going to cost in your distribution and supply chain? What's it going to cost in overhead to really support that and have customer service or other elements that you may need as well? So broadly, think about all these questions as you're examining how to bring the product to market. As we explore strategic positioning, we're going to start by defining strategy, talk about the nature of strategic decision, and then also discuss the merits of strategic planning. So what is strategy? It's a term that we know, but much like quality, we might have a hard time defining. In our context, when we look at strategy, we want to think about defining a company's position, making trade-offs, and forging fit among activities. So this first principle is oriented towards positioning in the context of thinking about unique value and activities. Serving a few needs of many customers may be an option. Serving the broad needs of a few customers may be an option. And in this context, we want to think about a company called HD Trade Services. This is a company out of the University of Maryland that's doing a very unique solution. They are allowing entrepreneurs to virtually see products that they are ordering from overseas. So in this context, they have an individual that is located on the supplier side with video cameras that for products purchased by other individuals abroad can see via online what's going on in a quality inspection type format. So you can monitor your distribution channel. You can virtually see through a computer what does the product look like in Taiwan that's being put into the box if you're physically located as the entrepreneur in Maryland. So very interesting solution. They also do a variety of other elements regarding managing fulfillment. They also handle some of the financing. They can be a source of holding the dollars, such that as the entrepreneur, I can give them my dollars, and then upon release of the product from my supplier and proper inspection, that escrow dollar can be released and provided to the supplier. So they are doing a lot of things for supplier marketing and fulfillment and channel management and financing. But there are not a lot of entrepreneurs, relatively, that need such a solution, so it's perhaps a small group of individuals that they're serving with a broad basket of needs. The second element that we want to think about are trade-offs. And a big piece of entrepreneurship is deciding what you're not going to do. You can't be all things to all people as an entrepreneur. It's too expensive to do, it's too expensive to market, and it's too cumbersome and confusing to have a single message for your market. So we want to focus on developing solutions and building a brand that's meaningful, that's consistent, and that has an express purpose. What this means is we want to emphasize serving one market in the beginning and explore growth opportunities later. We don't want to come to market trying to be everything to everyone. We want to start by doing one thing, doing it well, building brand and reputation there, investing our marketing dollars in that. And as we have success and grow, we can evolve and dive into other markets and new opportunities. Amazon is a great example of that. Amazon did not start selling what they sell today. In the beginning, it was books and only books. And the rationale was let us sell books at a relatively low price point, $20, where people know exactly what they're going to get because the title and author of a book in hard copy of a certain edition is the same no matter where we get it from. And let us do something that's affordable to ship. So in a day of non-free shipping, we can't sell dog food or furniture effectively online, but we can sell books. And as we have success with that, we can go into music. And if you buy a CD in 1998 of a certain artist, of a certain title, you know exactly what that is no matter where you buy it from. Price point, still inexpensive, $10, $15, shipping, very cheap. Made a lot of sense. In time, they grew to consumer electronics, to kitchen and beauty aids, to computers, to apparel, to jewelry, to shoes, to digital, etc. So even the great Amazon did not start by doing it all. They started by doing one thing well and gradually grew their product categories from there. Uber, tremendous company, tremendous success in the US and abroad. They do one thing. They move people from A to B, and they do it by vehicle. So in that way, they're not trying to do boats, they're not trying to do aircraft, they're not trying to do bikes. They arguably could do those things, but they focused on doing one simple thing and doing it well. The third element of strategic positioning is the element of forming fit. The reason that a Walmart can be inexpensive is because it's minimal pricing for minimal service and minimal ambiance. You don't go into Walmart expecting someone to have expert level knowledge about every product on the shelf. You don't go into Walmart expecting to be able to call them in advance, tell them what you would like. They will select that for you, meet you upon your arrival, walk you to the front of the line, and check you out. Well, the element of having such personalized service is available from companies like Nordstrom's and other high-end retailers, but it comes at a higher price. It comes at more cost for the company and thereby higher pricing for the consumer. So what we want to recognize here is that you want to have fit among your activities. You want to have competitive advantage, you want to be sustainable, but you also want to make all the pieces of your organization fit together and your market and your brand image to match the product category and service that you provide, to match the pricing that you charge, to match the operations that you're managing, and have it all connect. So when we look at Nordstrom's, they are consistently ranked among a favorite retailer and a favorite in customer service, ahead of all the rest in the US. And they attribute that to this element of customer service, and it differentiates them from other companies that are out there. Strategic positioning should also uncover new opportunities for entrepreneurs. We want to think about what can we do that's not obvious, what can we do that is creative, that involves insight, what can we do to discover unique positions, and being strategic and thinking about what opportunities may have been overlooked by others. So in summary, strategy is a big term, but it really boils down to three things in the context of entrepreneurship. One is thinking about where can you add value and do it uniquely. Secondly, what should you not do? What's going to add expense that's unnecessary? What's going to add confusion that you don't want? What's going to make you look like a competitor when you want to be unique? And then lastly, think about fit. Make sure all the pieces of your company fit together, that you've thought about the marketing and the branding, the customer value, the features and the functions you're going to have, and what pricing aligns with that, and that we have fit in our activities, and that we're strategic thinkers as we're evaluating our entrepreneurial opportunities. There's strategic positioning, and there's also strategic planning. So as we turn our attention to planning, we're going to introduce its importance, we're going to talk about the nature of it, and we're also going to explore how it can work for entrepreneurs in your advantage. So strategic planning is thinking more about the long game, the long-range goals that you have for you and for your venture. It's thinking about mission. It's thinking about objectives. It's thinking about what strategies, timelines, and measures you're going to have to help you score your success as an entrepreneur. There are many benefits to strategic planning. It should help you save money and that you're spending your time and money on the right thing at the right time. It also should bring you fewer cash flow problems. It should help you make decisions better because you've thought about them in advance. It should help you resource allocate more effectively. It should improve your competitive position. You can have and work with information in a more timely and faster factor because you've already thought about it. You can also make more accurate forecasts and reduce uncertainty. So tremendous advantages to strategic planning. When we think about the basic steps in strategic planning, we want to examine a variety of things. We want to examine strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. We want to think about the long-range game. It requires some attention to the short range as well, but our mission and our objectives are certainly at the core of that. We also want to think about how we implement that, through what programs and what procedures, how do we measure our success, and how do we follow up for continuous improvement. There are a few fatal mistakes. One is certainly misunderstanding the opportunity. So we need to do our research. Another is that we have no real advantage. We're kind of a me-too product. Another is that we're pursuing a position that's unattainable, or that we are going to compromise our strategy. The lastly is that we might not communicate that well to our team, to our partners, or to our investors. So when we're going to implement this plan, the advantages of a milestone planning process is it helps us break that down by year, by quarter, by month, perhaps even by week, of what's it going to take to get to that ultimate goal. So we have logical and practical milestones that are quantified and time-stamped. This helps us avoid costly mistakes and getting too far off the track or chasing opportunities that may be misaligned with our vision. It also is a methodology for replanning and understanding what happened, why it happened, and what we can do better next time. Without strategic planning, we may spend our time doing the wrong thing. We may spend efforts on things that we don't have the knowledge or the expertise in, and we may incur time and cost on doing that. So in summary, when we think about strategic planning, it requires some near-term commitment. It's not easy in the context of time. It takes some time, but it's for a long-term benefit. The value also exists in the plan and in the process of doing the plan. So getting yourself to put your ideas to paper, or to get your team around a table to talk about some long-term goals is time well spent. And by doing this regularly, you can evaluate how are we doing, how can we improve, and how can we enhance our success as an entrepreneurial team. Value innovation is a term that we're going to take a look at and study in the context of thinking about entrepreneurial opportunity analysis and new venture creation. Within this, value innovation is the 8th element of the opportunity canvas, and so we're going to spend some time exploring that term today. To define value innovation, what we're talking about is tools and techniques and approaches to recognize that we may have big ideas, but as entrepreneurs we may have scarce resources. And within that, particularly for entrepreneurs, it's important to be efficient in our use of these resources and to be discerning of how we spend our limited time and our limited finances. Value innovation is a particularly valuable mindset and tool in the context of value curves for being able to really understand the landscape of our competitors, what's of value to our customers, and thereby how we can compete and where to invest. Value curves are really the tool for developing and delivering value innovation. So a value curve is a diagram that compares certain products or services in select factors on a relative scale of low to high. It may, when we look at those factors, reference features or benefits or price points or brand or location or access or a variety of other factors that we believe important to the customers and to the market. When we look at this by example, we can think about law firms. And traditional law firms is illustrated by the blue line. Most traditional law firms are located in very opulent offices with large teams. They deliver high work product and have attorneys that are very well credentialed and very well educated. They come at a cost, and thereby law firms are oftentimes one of the highest level of expenses that entrepreneurs experience, be it in the initial incorporation and formation of the venture, to employment agreements and operating agreements, to patents and trademarks and other elements, to contracts and business and customer-related issues. So for a variety of reasons, entrepreneurs have turned towards self-serve web-based firms and tools. The LegalZooms, the NOLOs, and others that are out there are illustrated by the green line. The green line with these online self-serve are not at all opulent. They are not necessarily staffed or working with software and forms that have already been generated. The work product may be suitable, but it's unlikely to approach the level of customization and detail and thoughtfulness that you would get if you were working with a traditional law firm. And that's why the work product is approximately a 3 instead of the 10, based on this scale. The attorneys are, again, involved in the development of the tools, perhaps, but not someone that you're actively engaging in. But the affordability is tremendous. So that's why we see the affordability very high for the self-serve web-based firms, is because you may be able to get certain things done for tens of dollars, or $20 or $30, maybe $100 or $200 instead of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. So by that measure, that's what we mean by looking at the value curve and contrasting traditional law firms versus self-serve web tools for your legal services. Now, in between that is this red line of what a new age firm may be, a new age law firm that perhaps is blending some element of self-service with traditional, that perhaps is blending some element of automated versus human. And they may fall somewhere in the middle. There may be an opportunity for them to still have an office and have a team and deliver a high work product under attorney direction and supervision, but they may be able to do it at a more affordable cost because they've scaled back on some of these other high expense items. So again, this is an example of a value curve applied to a very traditional setting of law firms and how you might think about the different features and benefits and price points that might be relevant to customers. Now, the value of value curves is that it gives us the opportunity to diagram and to put to paper some ideas about competitors and to think about that single graphic as a point to highlight where there may be opportunities for entrepreneurs. We can think about possible changes in the value propositions, what we can do to change the curve that we may compete on, or even extend that curve and create some new factors. It also suggests some areas of focus for entrepreneurs and where we may want to spend our time if we're trying to enter a new industry or a new market. So in summary, when we think about what to do with value curves, one piece that we'll explore is elimination. Are there certain factors that we can eliminate? A second element that we'll look at is reducing. Are there factors that are on that value curve that we can reduce without significantly reducing the value delivered to customers? Another element that we'll look at is raising our degree of execution within certain factors. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at creation. Are there new factors that we can create? And so when we look at these four collectively, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about each going forward and thinking about how we can deliver value and innovate on value using this tool of the value curve.
Maybe we finish this one after the identification. Mình sẽ thật. See you.